What's up, everyone? Well, not sure how I'm going to even start this video. I honestly didn't have any forethought of making it. Just the idea that popped into my mind that everyone wants to tell you how you should live your life or what you should do, how to do it better. It's, we're constantly inundated with people and their opinions, and to withdraw from society, of course, puts us in a lonely position where we're struggling to find connection and understanding. And in my opinion, human contact, understanding, acceptance, and love are the most key assets to living a long and healthy life. And in fact, some of the recent, studies that have been done on, people's well-being, even this 75-year-old study from Harvard shows that people who have more people in their life that care about them, and more people who make an effort to make connections and to find value in life, lead happier, longer lives. But you can't just point at someone and say, you need to think positive. That shit doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. There are, the way that our bodies and our minds are one, it's always been, the mind over matter has always been a saying, but people don't take it seriously enough. People on one hand say, yeah, whatever you intend you can get, and oh man, if you just got to put your mind to it. But as to really believing that, it's a completely different thing. We can tell ourselves on the outside and write a note saying, oh yes, positive affirmations, but do you really look at the vision board and believe that you're going to be in that place you want to be? And for a lot of folks, the vision board is metaphoric. I mean, it could be anything. It could be in your head. Just the idea of where you want to be. I just, one of the keys to understanding, let's start off by saying that we as humans, and this is a fascinating concept. I heard somebody mention this the other day, and I thought about it, but it's never really, I've never really gone into detail on it or thought about it that much. The fact that we as humans don't understand how we got here. We don't understand where we're going. We can create any number of stories to explain that, and we can alter our own realities to fit those beliefs. And so be it. Because as a human, we can't really separate ourselves from others or from our environment. When you get down to the quantum level, if you will, where everything is merely energy, they'd say the inside of an atom is mostly empty space except the nucleus. Oh, the electrons, but that's just a cloud. The electrons aren't in any one real place until you look at them, and that neutrons can pop in and out of existence. You say, well, okay, particles pop in and out of existence. Particles compose parts of an atom. What is matter? And it doesn't matter, no pun intended, because that's what we realized. The deeper you look, the smaller you look at things, and you look into the quantum realm, you realize we don't know and we can't figure it out. It doesn't fit our normal understanding of science, if you will, to be able to do a test, and repeat that test, and not have the observer affect the experiment itself. But we could go into detail on all that forever, and it goes nowhere. What I'm trying to use that is to convey the idea that the closer you look at something, the more difficult it becomes to understand it. And this isn't always true, but let me give you the example of where I'm going, which is the human body and the mind. My mind is mine. I don't understand where it comes from. A person could say that your mind is just a product of your brain and, the thoughts that you have, and that it's just, billions, trillions of neural connections that all kind of make up this holographic reality within our head of what we are. But the eyes, for example, your eyes don't actually see. There's a dead space where you shouldn't be able to see, where your, I believe the cornea goes back and the retina is not quite attached. But our brains fill in that blank spot. And the same thing happens in our peripheral vision. I can see the camera right now. I can also see things around me. I know they're there, but they're not detailed. Not like as in when you're looking through a camera lens and it picks everything up perfectly. Your eyes are only perceiving what you want to perceive or what you desire to look at. And the most fascinating part of this is when you close your eyes and you think about doing an exercise, or you think about an object, the same exact parts of your brain activate as if you are actually doing it. And this has led people to say, well, who needs to exercise? I could just think about exercise. Some studies have been done to find that when people are thinking about exercise, their muscles actually do fire similarly. Of course, nobody's going to sit there for an hour a day thinking about exercising. You might as well just exercise. But, and of course, you're not going to, we won't get into the details of that. There are limits and exceptions to these rules, It's like manifest destiny. Like I said, if you want to create your own reality, you can. But, and I forgot to kind of get into the details of what I was, the part I wanted to mention about the future and the past is that the fascinating thing that we don't think about because we live in it is the fact that we can change our future. We can alter our path. We can alter our destiny. I guess you can't alter your destiny unless you assume that your destiny is already set in stone. But wherever you end up, that's your destination, that's your destiny. So it's not like you can sit and say, well, I'm going to change the future because it hasn't happened yet. But we can't change the past. We don't even understand what the past is. It's memories. Memories are what set us apart from other animals. Animals have memories of things that have happened to them and whatnot, but we can actually document these things, and we can study and look back at the earth and say, wow, these things have happened over a long period of time. And no matter how hard we try, as far as we know, we can't go back and change something that happened in the past, but we can alter the future. And this is where time becomes a very strange thing. It's like, if all time is here and now, then and the moment you start talking about these things, it goes nowhere because nobody understands it. There are people out there using terms like quantum all the time to try to define something. Oh, well, you want to understand how this, healing mode works? It's quantum. It's on the quantum realm. You wouldn't understand. It's bullshit. Anybody who uses that term trying to describe like quantum healing or quantum this or quantum that, quanta is, I believe, a number. It's not an actual thing. It's just a term, but it's a term that a lot of people. The reason I'm bringing this up, having to do with the brain, is because recent studies have shown that the brain tends to act like a quantum computer, and I won't go into any more detail on that. You look it up and look into the info. It's pretty fascinating. But what this does do is give us, I think that the biggest insight that we as society have had towards changing our mindset and changing our future is realizing that the brain and the gut are one. Now, when people talk about thinking with their stomachs, that was just a kind of an idea in the past. It wasn't like you really believed your stomach is thinking. But here's the thing. We know that our brains, our mood is affected by dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, all these different neurotransmitters that make us who we are. And the balance of those neurotransmitters determines our state of mind. And it differs from person to person, and there's no way to assess how another person thinks other than to ask them. And these neurotransmitters like serotonin have been found that the gut produces all of these. It's bacteria in the gut. 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut. And there's a nerve that goes from the stomach all the way up to the brain called the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve allows the brain and the stomach to communicate. Now, I've been doing my own, deep thinking on these subjects and trying to say, well, what things that have happened to me in my life can I attribute to this or maybe add something to it? A good example would be right before you feel like puking, you get a headache, right? I mean, maybe not every time, not everyone, and not in every situation, but whenever I feel like long before I'm nauseous, I'll be, if I maybe ate something bad or whatnot, I'll wake up and maybe my head's kind of cloudy, and I feel a little bit strange, and it'll give me like this really deep headache in the back of my head, and then I go vomit, and the headache goes away. What is that? Why? Why do you get a headache from a stomach ache? It's because they're directly connected. But the fascinating thing isn't that our stomachs produce these neurotransmitters. It's that it's not our own body that produces them. It's the bacteria in our gut, what they call the microbiome, or the body's microbiome, which is in your stomach. You have trillions of bacteria in your body, and I'm sure many of you have already heard this. There are more bacteria in your body, foreign cells, than your own cells, and that's a fact. And this is because we are not just human bodies invaded by bacteria. In fact, even many viruses are necessary. We don't even understand how these things work yet, but viruses don't reproduce on their own. They need to reproduce within a cell. They need to use a cell. So where did viruses come from? I mean, they couldn't live before cells, and you start getting into the technical depths of these things, and you start to say, wow, there's a reason bacteria evolved alongside us, obviously. But the question isn't whether bacteria evolved inside us, it's whether we evolved to suit the bacteria. And I've proposed this before, and it sounds a little insane. I made a video a couple of years ago, so that, like, are bacteria our gods? In the sense that if they're some of the oldest organisms on the planet, who says that they wouldn't decide as a whole to evolve a car, a vehicle? And animals are wonderful vehicles for bacteria, but what about humans? With the humans as a carrier of bacteria and evolving the consciousness, which is something that scientists still don't quite understand. Why would we evolve consciousness, and why would nature select that? Now, of course, we could say, well, then we can think, we can rationalize, we can hunt better, we can, better manipulate our environment. But for a period of time, that thinking, that awareness, consciousness, could hold us back. It's like if you're sitting there and you're staring at a beautiful flower and thinking about it, then the lion eats you, if you're not paying attention, So we went from fight or flight all the time to having time to think and building communities. And that thinking time allowed us to develop new technologies, and now we're able to go into space. And so I thought, why wouldn't bacteria evolve humans to become intelligent enough to use the resources on the planet, to build ships, to go into space, to carry those bacteria to new planets? And then you get into the panspermia theory, and it goes on and on and on. The idea that maybe it doesn't take asteroids to spread life. Maybe it's consciousness that spreads life. Maybe we, in a way, are the spores of the giant mushroom we call Earth. I know that kind of goes off track a little bit, but it's really all tied in together to me. The way that the gut reacts with the mind is so integral. We have so many bacteria in our guts, and our microbiome in our gut is affected by what we eat. If we eat a lot of junk food, a lot of sugar, you will develop more bacteria that feed on that sugar and less that want vegetables that feed on other foods. It takes time to train your body and to create a better microbiome. Now, I know I don't eat the best. I don't have the greatest of diets, and I really wish that I had actually eaten better when I was younger, but I didn't. I didn't even eat a salad until I was like 20. I think 22 or something. It was because I ate a piece of lettuce in outdoor school when I was like 12 and made me gag, and so I just never ate it again. Somebody tried to get me, they're like, you gotta try it, and it had no dressing, nothing. I was like, It was that time when I realized you build up these resistances to certain things because of our experiences, and using that we can learn to break out of that mold, learn how our minds primally set us up to push away certain things we know we have not liked in the past, but that our consciousness and awareness allows us to think past that and go, you can't let past experiences ruin the future. It's just like if you get fired from a job and decide to never look for a job again. I mean, nobody does that. You get out there and you try again, you do your best because you know it's what you've got to do to survive. Well, when it comes to the way we treat our minds and our body, it's not quite so cut and dry. It's not just about survival, because as long as we're doing okay, and we can get to work, and get home, feed our family, get to bed, and wake up and do it again, we think we're doing all right. But we know we could feel better. I don't work out, but I know at the times when I have worked out, I feel better about it. I don't always eat the healthiest, but every day I force myself to have my smoothie. It's a full meal smoothie. It's called Vega 1, and it's pretty expensive shit, but I know that it's something that I force myself because it's got supposedly, everything I need in it. But then I add, maca, ashwagandha, guarana, and moringa, and a few other herbs, and make this fat smoothie and just pound it. And that is... when I don't get that, I notice the difference, especially if I haven't eaten food. But the reason I bring that up is because I can drink that one smoothie in the morning, and I could be energized and feel fine all day. Never get tired, never feel that hunger pangs at all. But if I went out and I were to eat like fast food for lunch, it would make me feel crappy, burnt out, and later I would be hungrier. But if I ate every single day fast food like that, it would just be the norm. Having uncomfortable poops that nobody ever wants to talk about. Anybody knows what the fast food diet will do to you over time. If you don't eat it regularly and then you start eating it, you'll notice. And that's one thing I don't eat is fast food. So I guess for me it's not a matter of not eating right. It's a matter of just not eating that much. And it depends on how much energy that I expend. I have a super fast metabolism. I can eat anything and never get fat. It's just my personal body and my microbiome. And the funny thing is that they found like 3 different body types that relate to microbiomes when they did doing these studies. And it's very interesting because that correlates, in my opinion, instantly I thought about Ayurvedic medicine, which I don't know if I have the book right here or not, but yeah, here it is. The complete book of Ayurvedic home remedies, and a lot of the herbs that I sell on my website, are Ayurvedic herbs because I trust the science behind this and the studies. But there's 3 different body types. There's I think it's Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Anyway, I won't try to dig it out right now. But 3 different body types, and the different foods that each body type is better off eating, and which ones to avoid. And you wonder, thousands of years of people eating and documenting these things. Now they can put it into a format where we can do the research and look back and say there's something to it, just like TCM or traditional Chinese medicine. Some of it's legitimate, some of it's, maybe iffy. But there's definitely something to different body types and microbiomes. So what you eat is hugely dependent on what you need for your body type. And that makes it hard because we have a million health experts out there and a bunch of stupid doctor shows on television saying, this week coconut oil is good, this week it's bad, this week meat's good, this week it's bad, this cholesterol is good. I saw a doctor the other day saying that more people who die from certain diseases have low cholesterol, and that's what causes it. Low cholesterol actually lowers your immunity too. So we've been told about high cholesterol forever. What's going to happen next? In 5 years they're going to say, well, we found out eating sugar is the best diet ever. Of course not, because we know we need much more than that. But just saying cut sugar out completely is preposterous because of the way that, sugar is fuel in a way. But I won't get into the details of the different types of sugar and the different forms because the actual science behind it is so limited by how we understand how molecules interact. People think that, we've seen through the electron microscope, how atoms work and how molecules work, and we really haven't. In fact, it was, I think, this year, excuse me, it was this year that somebody said, the recent Nobel Prize that was won, there was one that was done on the way that our bodies, our natural clocks in our bodies, and there was another one done for the way that, what was it? I can't remember now. Brain fart. Anyhow, I'll look it up. Try to write it down, maybe in the comments. But there's so many discoveries being made right now within these realms of science and body health that are not understood. That certain foods and certain, food only goes so far. You can eat healthy, and if your mindset is bad, the food may help you, into a mode where you can get a better mindset. But the mindset is where it starts. Your hunger is suppressed when you're stressed out. When you're anxious, when you're depressed, you don't get hungry. We all know this. And this is because historically, over millions of years of evolution, when you needed to run, you didn't want hunger or anything in your way. You wanted all your body to shut down and your energy to flow, and so you could run from danger and protect yourself. You may be completely aware of what's going on around you, and your mind just going quick, 1,000,000 miles an hour. After the danger is past, we'd go back to our cave and hang out with our family again and forget about it. But now our memories are so distinct, and we hang on to these things and play the victim forever. And oh my God, this happened to me, and it makes us anxious for years. People can't get over even a death, 2 decades later, or even for the rest of their life, losing someone never heals, but completely, but or the memory is always there, but it can heal, you know. I'm no expert, but I lost my father when I was 15 to cancer and basically watched him die, so, you know, I understand death, but I also understand how I kind of shut that part out of my life where I don't, you know, I don't really, it's hard for me to have sympathy for death itself, knowing that it's such a natural part of life, and that overcoming that takes so much of a burden off of us, to not feel like we have to continuously justify life. Life is phenomenal. Existence is phenomenal. But death is divine. Without it, nothing exists. And nothing really dies. And that's what these studies on these quantum realms have shown us, that everything is a mere energy, but that energy has no matter. When you die, your body doesn't dissolve into just particles and molecules. I mean, these molecules and breaking down into atoms, and these atoms can pop in and out of existence. Quantum tunneling is when, like, an atom can go through a solid object and appear on the other side. Nothing is for sure. So the idea is we are creating our own reality, but there are enough of us to show that there's a universal mind, if you will, that we all share. Kind of a deeper understanding, what they might call Akasha, but I don't like using that term. Akashic records would be like the records of everything that's happened. And in my mind, I kind of picture it as out there in the ether, something you can grab, but that's just a metaphor. I believe it's all right here. We are receivers of information. We are producers of information. We are created and we are creators. And that is a high responsibility. Being able to be put here with a conscious mind to understand it and choosing how much we want to understand. When it comes to the gut and the mind, to kind of come full circle here, I'd really, you know, there's so many different foods that we eat, but also so many different drugs and herbs and substances that change the mind. For example, you know, I get so many questions regarding Kratom as a Kratom vendor, and I was actually going to make a video about Kratom here, but I decided to talk about this instead. But how different people react to it. How there seems to be a more or less universal way that people react to certain substances, but that there's segments of the population who have completely adverse reactions, totally different. Nothing is safe for everyone. I mean, I love peanut butter, but there's people at my son's school who it will kill. You know, but that's different. Allergies. There's also, while I'm thinking about allergies, there's the belief that allergies in some instances are mind manifested. That you're not allergic to something just because your body can't handle it, but because you have something in your memory that creates this allergy. You think about it, all an allergy is the body's reaction to something that it believes is dangerous. So if your mind is creating your reality, and you've spent years thinking something's dangerous, and then somebody tells you, oh, by the way, that had this in it, you may break out in a rash just by manifesting that idea. It's like the guy who was taking cancer medication and was told, oh, we found out this doesn't really work. And then his cancer came back. And then the doctor says, actually, here's a new one that they found out does work. And then his cancer went away again. And then he says, oh, then the guy did his own research, found out it didn't work, and it was a sugar pill. So then his cancer came back and he died. There have been several cases of remission, and we're trying to understand how this works. There's the scientific side which says, don't be so floaty about this shit and say that it's all mind over matter. No, you don't create your own sickness. You don't create your own disease. All this is preposterous. But then there's the other side of it that says, not completely, no. But to a degree, we do manifest how we feel about things. We are the ones who associate emotions with things. So, when I hear a song I really like, it might move me to tears. Or it might move me to laugh. Another person may have had a bad experience hearing that song in the past, and it might just piss them off. So both of us, just through hearing the same tones, are affected in completely different ways. And this is the same way everywhere we go. The one thing I love to try to, try to explain here, make sure the camera's going. One thing I really like to explain here is how it's the same way with the things we see. I realized this about, I don't know, 15 years ago when I was a roofer. And when I'd drive around with my friend, we'd always point out roofs. And I don't remember when it was, but I was driving with somebody and they were pointing out, either siding or windows, something pertaining to a house, or maybe a landscape. I think it was a landscape. It's happened several times where somebody points out something over and over that I wouldn't even have noticed. And it led me to do a lot of thinking about how we perceive the world. How two people can be sitting in a car driving down the street seeing the same scenery. But one person is noticing certain street signs, another person's noticing different ones because of what we want to see or what we expect to see. But sometimes it's deeper. It's like one guy's looking at the roof, another guy's looking at the homeless on the side of the road because he works at a soup kitchen sometimes and he's thinking about helping them. And you know where I'm going. There is no one perception that we all share. And even within a paradigm of belief, such as a religion, we can't, even Christians can't agree on what Christ was or what religion is. There's different types of Jews and Muslims and, Buddhists. I saw an interview with the Buddhist the other day. It was on Vice or something, and they're over there. There's a bunch of monks over there. I can't remember where it is. I think Burma. And they're physically, violently attacking these outsiders who are basically, they're not the greatest people they're attacking, but the fact is they're monks attacking people. And they interviewed one of the guys in his robe, and you could just see it in his eyes. He was just pissed. He's like, these people. And I thought, it's not that the world has come to this, to where monks are angry and violent. It's always been this way. It's just that we choose to see things through a majority rule. If a majority of monks that we've seen in the past seem peaceful, we think they're peaceful. Side note, I was at the store the other day and I saw this monk walk out with a bag of groceries, and he walked around and got into this car with 3 other monks, and they all had their robes, and they drove off in this little Honda. It was just a funny moment. I've never seen monks driving cars, but they're just people. That's the point. Everyone's seeking their own way of life, and it's not as we picture it. It's not, whatever goes on in another person's mind isn't how we see it. And, to make it full, the point there is that sometimes you have to resort to violence. Even the monks understand that there's no simple answer, that everything's subjective and it's really determined on how we think about it. So the most crucial aspect is to think as positively and rationally as we can. And that means to take care of ourselves, to take care of our minds, to take care of our bodies, to take care of our hearts and our stomachs, to make sure that we're eating food that is good for us, that we're thinking thoughts that are good for us, but not omitting or ignoring things that we need to pay attention to in the world. And most of all, in our hearts. Because the number one key to success in a long life is love, and having people in your life that you love and respect and can understand. Because it produces another chemical, neurotransmitter, oxytocin, which is the bonding chemical between mother and son, father and son, lovers, and this is why we give hugs. It releases oxytocin, and this is where handshakes came from. It's not just about shaking someone's hand. It's about making physical contact because it creates our own chemical reaction in the body. And the more we pay attention to these reactions, the more we can yearn for the ones that work and ignore the ones that don't, or at least try to minimize the damage they do. So, peace and love, everybody, and have a great day. Think positive. Eat well. Be well. Talk to you soon.